While April hides Honeycut, Casey holds the fort. Here's your look at the NECA toys. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, Casey Jones. From the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book, The Last Ronin, in a future New York City far different from the one we know today, a lone surviving turtle goes on a seemingly hopeless mission to obtain justice for his fallen family and friends. Based on issue number 3 of the comic, this Casey Jones figure stands in 7-inch scale with over 30 points of articulation and includes extra hands, head, loose mask, signature golf bag, sledgehammer, 2 baseball bats, hockey stick, cricket bat, and comes in a collector's friendly window box packaging with open front flap, including custom illustration by the Last Ronin artist Ben Bishop. I sure hope that Casey is stocked up, because Stockman's nearby. Just before we get a close look at the new Last Ronin Casey Jones, first I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA that were kind enough to provide this sample we could have a look at. If you're a new viewer, welcome. If you're a longtime viewer, welcome back. The tape measure is going to tell us that Casey Jones stands at 6 1/4 inches in height, or the figure stands at 15.5 centimeters tall. Where did we leave off? I'll tell you where we left off. When last we actually joined the adventures of this humbled reviewer going through the pages of Last Ronin, the last figure, in fact, we looked at was the leader, Leonardo. We also, as well, just before that, looked at Michelangelo. We can bring him as well for comparison's sake. And a long time ago, in fact, we looked at the original Last Ronin figures, whether you went with the armored version or the unarmored version. Again, a course correction to one thing I did say in the review of Michelangelo that I did correct in Leonardo's review was obviously the size differences there, because Michelangelo does have a secondary mutation that does result in him being taller, and why these figures are a little bit taller than the original ones we have looked at. I thought it would also be fun as well. I'm going to slide over one of the Last Ronin figures and bring in cartoon Casey Jones. Not that you would really ever compare Casey Jones to his cartoon self, but just to kind of at least give you an idea of how the two characters have very similar looking features, completely different figures altogether though. I think it's safe to say that Casey Jones probably has the most accessories, so far at least, of the Last Ronin figures that we've looked at. Now there are still few that we're going to be looking at, like for example Master Splinter. We still going to be at some point looking at the Sinja, but I don't think they're going to be topping at least the quantity count of what's going to be coming included with Casey. The figure, first of all, does come included with his golf bag, and then of course the various tools of the trade that are all going to sit inside the bag. He comes with an alternate head sculpt and various hands. One thing, though, if you've already picked up this figure, you've experienced this for myself or for yourself. I don't know how many times I've changed these hands out. And every single time I've put the new hands in, I still end up experiencing all new paint flakage. The paint flaking on the ends of these pegs. It's notorious. And I'm sure as I continue to change these hands out, you'll even see more paint has flaked all over the place. Either way, though, let's look at the accessories that come included with Casey Jones. One thing, though, that's kind of confusing is the fact the figure doesn't come included with a Spider Mauser. Neither him nor Leonardo, and the significance of why I say Spider Mauser without giving anything away, you would think that either one of those figures would have come included with it. To be fair, though, ... Is it only 3 dots? I think it's only 3 dots. To be fair, though, NECA is, though, releasing in Q4 a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Sinja Robot 2-pack that seems to be coming included, though, with a Spider Mauser. I don't know, though, if the singular release of Sinja did come include the Spider Mauser. That's, though, a figure that we will be looking at down the road. ... In the meantime, though, let's look at the accessories that come included with Casey. First, the figure does come included with various different weapons. Now, depending on how you want to have the figure displayed, you could choose for yourself, of course, to go with the trusty hockey stick. That's always a good go with. Obviously, you can see the way they've taped this all off, and everything gets this treated panel lining. It looks fantastic, whether you're looking at this, whether you're looking at the 2 bats, whether you're looking at the cricket bats. The attention to detail on NECA's part, nothing gets skimped at all in these figures. And of course, he does come included with the golf bag. So as we look, though, at like the hockey stick, for example, that can go into, well, not necessarily with these hands, but he does come included with some gripping hands. You can, of course, then just store any one of these in the bag. The figure also comes included with a sledgehammer. Now, the sledgehammer, unlike everything else, at least is given a little bit of dark gunmetal gray on the handle here. or the head of the handle. Now you can see as well, they've taped that off down below here as well. Like even the wood grain, although it's a little harder to make out the wood grain here on the sledgehammer, like again, like the attention to detail is incredible on these. We're going to just drop that into the bag. He does also come included with two, I don't know if necessarily these would be a Jose Canseco bat. Tell me you didn't pay money for this. No, no, it's not. I don't think they're Jose Canseco bats, but he does come include what seems to be identical bats. Now again, gripping hands. He does come include with those. I know we're not really delivering much in the way of showing you guys what that looks like just yet. Dot, dot, dot. Figure comes with those. And then the last thing he also comes included with is a cricket bat. This whole time, I don't know if you guys have even been noticing, everything stores conveniently inside the bag, and there's still room to spare. It's not a case where everything is tight in quarters, where I have to start moving things around. Oh, that's not going to fit. Oh, butters, that's not going to fit either. I'm going to have to take one thing out to accommodate everything else. No, it seems like the bedroom is spacious enough to accommodate all the kids staying over. You ever have big families coming over, and then you, of course, have to figure out where's everybody going to stay? And then you end up sleeping on the couch. Anyways, though, of the other things that come included with the figure also does have technically an interchangeable head sculpt, which I'm kind of glad to see that they include. Casey Jones, this isn't the first time we've done this, actually, by the way. I don't say, not that I'm part of the equation. It's not the first time that NECA has released a Casey Jones figure that doesn't come included with an alternate head sculpt. In this case, you do get an unmasked face sculpt, which I can't be the only one that thinks that looks like Walton Goggins. Walton? Is it Walton Goggins? Obviously, everybody probably knows him now. I mean, he's been in various different things. One of the things I actually remember him the most from is Vice Principals. Like, it was a 2016 comedy. It didn't last nearly enough. It also starred Danny McBride. Vice Principals, especially if you work in the school board. It's a funny show to be watching. Walter Goggins, though, it does look, I feel, very much like the actor. I do like the way they've shaved the sides of his hair. I mean, just again, like the attention to detail on this guy. He's got some stubble there growing down below here as well. Now, he does technically also have a face mask that you could cover over top of his beautiful mug. Now, to be fair, though, the figure does already have all that working in his favor anyways. He does have already a hockey mask face, although this one you can't remove. It does probably, I'm sure, beg the question, well, what, couldn't you just really just display the figure unmasked and then simply just put the mask on him? I know, I was thinking the exact same thing. The thing, though, that you have to keep in mind is, if we take the mask, for example, which is fairly hard in plastic. It was a lot harder than I was expecting it to be. Although it was very hard, in fact, to kind of take it outside the tray. Because as I was pushing the back, it was also pushing these straps in, and I was worried that these would be breaking. But this does, though, slide over his face. It's just a case of, again, taking the back, sliding over the front. The thing you have to be worried about, the thing I'm certainly worrying about, is scraping the paint on the front of his face. It does slide all the way down, and you can probably already see, well, it delivers, for the most part, almost an identical head sculpt to what we're getting here. The thing that is changed, though, is that he is now missing his white eyes. So if you are one that likes to have white eyes and you're Casey Jones, then obviously this is the head that you're going to want to go with. If you like, though, the idea that down the road, you can always display the figure with the mask on, or, you know, hey, you could be one of those people. I do this from time to time, too. Characters that have masks every once in a while. Like, I have a couple of Casey Jones. I'll just kind of go up to my shelf every once in a while and just kind of flip the lid up. Have it displayed like that. You can also do that as well. I mean, obviously, I like the idea that the white eyes are there, but I also kind of like the idea that from time to time, again, I can go in there and just kind of lift and look under the hood. Either way, though, if you did want to change out the head sculpt, just before we do that, I did want to show you guys what the stock head sculpt does look like. The thing that's a little bit different, though, is if you look at the stubble, they've actually panel lined the stubble on the defaulted face, and they've actually only just suggested it by airbrushing on the bottom of his face down below here. So it's a little bit different, but you can see like the masks are very similar to one another. Changing out the heads, by the way, taking and holding onto the torso and just pop that off. Then you can just replace it then with the, I'm going to actually just take the mask off first. Why, though? Why, in case you're wondering? I'm taking that off just because when I like to put the heads on, sometimes I just put a little pressure on the top, pop it down like that. I didn't want to damage the mask. So again, that's what the mask looks like, or that's what the face looks like without the mask. And again, if you want to just finish the look, just put that over top of his face. Boy, that's easy. It is easy. Just be careful of the straps. Be careful of scraping of the paint. But all in all, though, like one of the better ways to display the figure, if you like the idea of down the road, again, you want to just lift the mask off. For the rest of the figure's features, I guess one of the other things he comes included with from an accessory standpoint, bearing in mind he does also have closed fists right on the ends of his forearms that aren't going to be holding much of anything. He does, though, have some gestured hands, which, again, really aren't going to be holding much of anything. Nicely detailed, though. Yeah, I know. I was thinking the exact same thing. He does also come included with, again, like different grips of hands. So, like, some of the hands are a little bit better suited for, like, holding things like the hockey stick. See, there's the paint flaking right there. Wider hands for holding the hockey stick, slightly more smaller hands, gripping hands for holding things like the bats, or holding, like, for example, the sledgehammer. Sledgehammer would be a wider grip, so you might want to be kind of beelining more to the idea of using the wider gripping hands for holding the sledgehammer. I'm just going to demonstrate now. So you can see right there. It's not going anywhere at all, but it's not probably going to be good at all to be holding it inside this hand, because you're really going to have to fight it to get it in there. Like things like the baseball bat, a lot easier. You're just going to take that, fit it in between his fingers, kind of just dowel it in there. And of course, he does have the means to hold his bats. All right. By the way, though, you may not see it, but there's more space dust. It's a Simpsons reference. Moving, though, all the flakes of paint out of the way. One of the other things that this Casey Jones has that's kind of cool is on the back of his body. He does also have storage spaces for actually holding some of his weapons. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's suitable for holding all the weapons. I mean, like, for example, if you want to take yourself the baseball bat for how much space you have to work with fits easily in there. In fact, you could do double Conseco bats, just have them slid on the back like that. Things like his cricket bat also work fine too, because the handle is pretty narrow on that. Things that I don't find work as well are like the hockey stick. You kind of really have to fight to get it in there. And obviously, like the sledgehammer would be even more difficult to get in there if his hand wasn't even in the way. I would say probably the hardest thing would be the hockey stick to get in there. I mean, I guess really the mallet would fit in there too if his hand wasn't in the way. Speaking of hands, though, let's go ahead and just remove those hands right now. They're fairly easy to remove too. I'm just going to pop off one, pop off the other. You can see all the flakes of paint. And then again, if you want to change the hands out, we're just going to pop those in place. There's one, and we'll do the exact same thing. What's a good hand? We'll grab this hand right now. So again, like, you can display the figure. You can have obviously the two weapons on the back of his body. It does, I'm sure, beg the question, how's it going to work with his golf bag? The thing about it, though, is first of all, the golf bag, I find it's easier, first of all, to remove the head. There we go. We'll just pop that off for right now. If you want to slide the bag over, it's fine and good to fit over top of his body. Obviously, what's going to be getting in the way of things is now the two things that are on the back of his torso. Don't worry, though. They did think of that. NECA, that is. You can, in fact, take off this entire piece altogether. It's just a peg. It's just a hole. And you remove the two. And then it very much easier can get the bag over top. Just again, it's probably better just to take the head off first, and then you just kind of get the bag over. The one thing, unfortunately, though, is it's going to still fight getting over front of his armor. Like, he's got this front armor padding there on the front of his body. And I still feel like the bag is a little too tight. Even if you want to have it on, say, this side. Again, you want to just get it over top of his peg there. The last thing you really want to do is break the strap. I've had a Casey Jones where the strap has broken, and it was so sad. It was such a disappointing thing. And then again, we can get our head back in place. There we go. And now you got yourself the golf bag on the back of his body. I kind of wish, though, that they would have allotted still a little bit more length on the straps. Just would be a lot easier to get the golf bag on the back of his body. But again, it's possible. It's just, though, a lot easier, and it's a lot more possible if you remove this piece first. So take that off first, whatever you do. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to take this off, because I know, looking at the figure's articulation, obviously showing you guys all the other things from a feature standpoint, it's going to be a lot easier to do things with the golf bag off. So we're just going to pop the head back in place, and then showing you guys everything else that's making up his body other than obviously his face, because we've already looked at that. You've got some really good coloring going on here. You know, it's something I'm sure I will say later into this review, and even wrapping up the review, that this might be one of my favorite Casey Jones figures. That's factoring in the ones that we've gotten from before, like the Mirage Comics version of Casey Jones. That's obviously including the comic versions, and even like the 1990s movie Casey Jones. This might be, I feel at least, one of the best, if not the best, Casey Jones figures we've gotten. The colors of the green work really well. I don't know if you would consider that green. Is that kind of more like a teal, a light, very greenish teal? You got, of course, the brown there on the front for his padding. This padding, by the way, is a softer plastic. You notice it more so when you look at, like, his abdomen area. It's a little harder up here, but they clearly have added an appliance piece over top of his body. And that obviously is not a bad thing at all. It just means, first of all, that's probably a lot easier to tool that than tooling everything from scratch. He's got a shoulder pad there on the side. Now, with the shoulder pad, they've actually made it as a separate piece from the rest of his arm, which means if you do decide you want to move his arms out, I would certainly hope you do. It doesn't mean like his shoulder pad's going to get in the way at all. It's really nice detailing there on the front. The panel lining that we get here in white, it doesn't seem at all to be messy. I'm like looking everywhere on the figure, looking, and not that I would be hoping for paint problems, but so at the very least I could say, okay, well, the paint's not the cleanest in some of the areas. No, scratch that. The paint actually looks pretty good in every area. Of course, again, like he's got the front here, the front suit piece for his armor. That's done here in brown. Got some bandages there on the sides of his arms. I know I'm only really just explaining what's everything you can see in front of the figure. But again, like just the attention to detail on just the bandages alone. Everything, I mean, from what I can understand, it probably looks like they've probably taken a dark, like a black, and they probably have painted the bands over top of it. It doesn't necessarily look like they've washed it. Maybe it could have been the other way around. Either way, though, the attention to detail on the biceps, you got the panel lining added in there. I mean, again, I would just continue to say panel lining, but that's essentially what they've done with the figure. You still get it here on the tops of the legs. You don't get as much of it here, though, in his knees and his lower legs. But again, like there's just a lot of good work going on here for Casey Jones. Now, for his articulation, his head's going to be on a ball joint. Whether you decide you want to use this head or you want to go back to the original head sculpt, the head's going to work exactly the same way. It's going to rotate all the way around. It's going to allow the head to go up. Obviously, you're going to probably have a problem with the mask moving around a lot. But it's going to look up, it's going to look down, and you can also move it back and forth as well. Now, while this shoulder can rotate all the way around, no problems at all, this shoulder or this arm is going to also give you a little bit more problems, just because, again, like you've got the shoulder pad getting in the way. Sure, it moves forward and back. To rotate it all the way around you can't do it. Don't even consider. I mean, you could try, but I feel it's just going to cause damage to the shoulder pad, and that's the last thing you really want. So I'm just going to say don't do it. Don't do it. He has a swivel there in the bicep. Double hinge on the elbow, yes, and the hands do rotate all the way around. There is still also as well a hinge in the hand. I know sometimes I forget to mention that to you guys, but there's a rotation here, but each one of the hands also have a hinge. The upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. No restrictions there at all. Legs do split out. They are on ball joints, after all, on the inside. That also allows, by the way, the legs to rotate at the top of the thigh. Figure does have a double hinge on the knee. And the figure does also have articulation where it counts in his ankles. Not only this way, but you can also rock it back and forth. And why, you may ask, is such a big deal to always compliment a company when they give ankle articulation that rocks back and forth? That's because, my friends, my colleagues, if you do angle the legs in or angle the feet inward, for example, it does give a much more stabilizing stance for the figure. Without really that ankle pivot, essentially the figure would basically, like, it would always basically look like that. And then if you split the legs, the figure's going to have a little more of a balancing issue. The ankle rocker, I mean, we really have to. I mean, if there was an award for kind of an underappreciated articulation for a figure, I feel like ankle rocking is definitely one up there. Because just again, like if you have the ankle rock like this, it does give, again, a much better stance, a much more stable stance if you're looking to put Casey Jones on display. Especially if you got, of course, obviously the golf bag on the back of his body. That's going to add some obviously unnecessary weight in the back of his body too. I mean, the benefit, at least, while the figures don't come included with display stands, they do have pegals on the bottoms of his feet. And again, we'll bring back in where we've left off so far, where we are so far at least. We've looked at two Turtle brothers. We've looked at Casey Jones. And again, like what is there to say that I haven't already said? I'm loving the line that we're getting so far with the Last Ronin figures. I know we haven't covered as much of the territory. There's a lot of territory still to cover for the Last Ronin. Still want to look at Splinter. Still want to look at Sinja. He's going to be coming up in an upcoming review as well. I mean, to see where we've come now, I mean, to even just to look at the original Turtles. Not necessarily, again, like the Last Ronin figures, the original ones that we got were all that bad. But again, I just feel like there's leaps and bounds for what they've done from a paint standpoint. Colors are a little bit more softer approached. The colors definitely, I feel, reflect a little more of the comic pages. Maybe not as much as what we got with the original Last Ronin figures. Casey Jones, though, by far is one of the best, if not the best, Casey Jones figures that we've gotten. And then, again, that includes the original Mirage comics. That includes the movie 1990 series. And that also includes the comics, which, again, like from the cartoon, which we just bring back in the cartoon version of Casey Jones. Where is he going to stand? Let's move him over here. We'll just put Casey Jones right there. Yeah, I've always been really a big fan of Casey and of the offerings, and there have been a fair number of offerings from NECA. This is, I feel, the best Casey of the bunch. Originally, yeah, sure, I would have loved the idea of Casey Jones and Leonardo could have come included with a battle-damaged version of this Spider Mauser. But then to really look at a figure like Casey Jones, there's never really an opportunity where NECA can save some of the costs of producing a character like this, because Casey Jones is known for what? A golf bag full of weapons for him to wield. And this figure doesn't disappoint at all, doesn't slack at all when it comes to the accessory count. Coming first of all with a hockey stick, a cricket mat, two baseball bats, and a sledgehammer. And one thing that's good at least about this Casey Jones, because I've had problems in the past being able to fit all of his weapons inside the bag at one time. He seems to be able to accommodate all of his weapons and still have room to spare. Speaking of sparing weapons, if you don't want to carry around a big bulky bag, one of the benefits, at least of this Casey Jones, unlike some of the others, is that he does also have a more streamlined way of carrying around at least 2 other weapons. You simply just take the bag on the back of his body off, and then you swap it out instead with the 2 slotted compartment place that just literally plugs into the back of the figure's body. You do have to remove it, though, in order to accommodate the bag. The bag, just with the length of strap that you have to work with, there's just really no way to get the golf bag over top of the body without removing that piece first. But it's, as you can see in this review, is a really easy thing to remove. While this figure doesn't, though, come included with the Spider Mauser, if you already have picked up the TMNT Last Ronin Elite Sinja bot, that robot actually came included as well with the Spider Mauser, and then that figure is going to get packed as well with a 2-pack Sinja that's also going to, again, come include with a Spider Mauser. Even though we are a little bit let down here that Casey Jones and Leonardo, neither one of them came included with it, we at least are going to be getting, 2 Spider Mausers with both the releases of the Elite Sinja robot, Patrol Bot, and there's also, again, going to be that 2-pack. Back, though, to Casey Jones, even though I got the figure rotating right now in the rotisserie displayed with his mask up, I'm likely, though, even though this whole talk of in the review saying I like the idea of being able to lift up the mask, probably will just end up going back to the idea, because this one obviously is more influenced from the comic pages. I think I would rather display this Casey Jones with the white eyes. That's my own personal preference. If, again, you like the idea of swapping it out, with the removable mask like this, it at least gives you some available options. And with Casey Jones, that's one thing the figure has always benefited from, available options. One good news is this guy is available right now, either in stores or online. If you guys are interested, get this one for yourself. Big thank you to the folks over at once again, NECA, that did, yes, provide the sample of the brand new Last Ronin. This was the Casey Jones. Probably, again, one of the best Casey Jones figures we've ever gotten. Where do you guys put this Casey Jones when it comes in comparison to the other Caseys we've gotten from NECA, whether it be the movies, whether it be the cartoon, whether it now be the comics? Where would you put this Casey Jones as your top favorites? Let me know down below. If this isn't your favorite, what would you say is the best Casey Jones figure that we've gotten from NECA? Let me know down below. If in the meantime, though, you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid. Do it a solid. Throw it a like. Why not? And of course, if you did want to stick around if you're taking a tally right now, we've finished off Michelangelo. Doesn't sound right. We've also as well looked at Leonardo. Now we've just wrapped up things with Casey Jones. We are still going to be looking at Master Splinter, and we also are going to be looking at a couple of color variations on the original Last Ronin Michelangelo's, and we're also going to be looking at the standalone pack Sinja. So still a bunch of Last Ronin reviews coming your way. So making sure, yes, you're coming back on a regular basis. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.